Hi, everybody. So the guys have very kindly offered to have a quick recap meeting now that the dust has settled and we're all back from Davos, just to see how they felt it went, what they thought was better this year than last year, how they might improve if they're going to go back next year, and just what the general experience was. So thank you very much for joining me again, guys. How are you all?
Doing great. Thank you.
Good,
to see
Max.
you,
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much for asking. So Christian, starting with you then, can you just kind of give us a high-level view of what your thoughts are now that you've had time to sort of reflect?
Yeah, and it's good just to recap what we did last year. Last year we had Hedera House, which was a dedicated presence on the promenade, which was branded Hedera. We had a lot of programming in there. One of the key things that we learned was it was very hard to pull the high-level C-suite type executives into that place, and policymakers and that higher level audience. So the bet this year was, instead of trying to pull those folks into our establishment, let's go to where they are already. That led to a takeover of the bar at the Belvedere Hotel. We did a private dinner and 2 private lunches, and the goal was to get in front of as many C-suite folks and high-level people and high-profile companies as possible. And I'd say at a high level, we achieved that goal. The presence was great. You know, the branding was top-notch. Thank you very much to Claudio, as usual. The dinner and the lunches were really good. Zenobia will recap news that we had throughout the week as well. So I think, you know, on an execution level, we did pretty well this week.
I couldn't agree more. I think rather than last year, this year was trying to get the C-suite executives and higher out. It was like, because they're all hanging around, and it's kind of, yeah, it was really good because rather than having a fishing line out in the road, you had a net right at the mouth of the river. So that was really, really cool to see. There was probably well, I know there must be a whole nother layer of organization that I don't see. And that is people organizing meetings before the event, but also at the event. Did you get many sort of spontaneous meetings happen because of the location, because of where you were? And then how do you make a note to catch up and sort of capitalize on that later?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that the bar was packed all the time, and it was a very high throughput area. But my favorite sessions of the whole event were the breakfasts, which was from 7 until 9 every morning, still in the bar. And it wasn't busy. You know, folks would come in maybe throughout the whole breakfast, maybe there were 25 people in there, but you got to have very good conversations because they were in a totally different mode than some of the more hectic times at the bar. So for me, that was my opportunistic meetings that I had with some very high-profile companies, that when you talk about next steps, you know, we are doing lead qualification and handoff to the right folks in the ecosystem. And I do know, just from sort of reviewing the names and the levels that we've collected, that there are some really good follow-ups for the team.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I know Lehman had a stack of business cards like that at one point. It was quite impressive, an impressive deck as well.
It was great having Lehman there this year. I think Zenobia will recap a little bit about him. Your video went live with him as well, and he talked about how busy he was. But having him there this year was really, really great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I
Just
was
on
going to
the
say, Max, I was just going to say that that whole journey getting to our space too, like security one day was an hour long. The next day it would be only 15 minutes long. But the amount of business cards and the caliber and quality of people that we would meet in line. One time they held me back and the president of Argentina walked right by me and I had a quick hello with him. You had an opportunity to meet some pretty influential people and some game changing people. Bill McDermott, Jamie Dimon, like a number of people that were coming in and out of that hotel was awesome. And then one night, I remember sitting in the bar, and we were I was speaking to a person who was a professor of blockchain at UC Berkeley. And I said, hey, are you free right now? Would you like to join us for our dinner and our panel discussion? And he's like, oh my gosh, I would love to. And I walked him right over and I got him a seat at the same table with Lehman. And now him and Lehman are buddies and they hit it off. And so just some really great opportunities, which last year we just didn't have that kind of caliber of attendee, but also the ability to sit down and have a chat with them without it being in a loud space and what have you. And of course, our branding was all over that hotel. And it is, like I said from our last call, the premier hotel in the middle of Davos, and being able to have such influential people walking around a space with our branding all over the place was a big hit and a big bonus for us.
Well, I think
and
the
then on the media side, sorry, Max. And apologies, it's a little loud here, but on the media side, we were also in the same hotel as the Wall Street Journal and CNBC. And we had a lot of conversations that we had some that were preset, but others where they just, had joined or had heard something and then came into either one of our meals, or we grabbed them and had a one-on-one conversation. So those were really useful to be in close proximity to those brands as well.
Yeah, so the sweet spot seems to me then the sort of Goldilocks zone. It does seem to be the earlier morning though. Just from this is my personal opinion, because people seem to be in business mode but still with their guard down. It's early morning, they're waking up, they're having their coffee, they're willing to engage and talk, but they haven't got their guard up as they do as it gets busier and busier and people are then doing business, as it were, throughout the day. And at night time, people have kind of moved on from business, and then it's kind of just partying, kind of get to know each other more personally. So I think I agree with Christian then. In the morning atmosphere just seemed different. It was business, but not quite as guarded. Just on the lunches and dinners, which I was very, very grateful to be invited to, because the panels were genuinely interesting, like really, really, really super panels. For me, the only disappointment would be that they weren't recorded, because of course it was Chatham House rules, meaning that people can speak freely and it's not recorded. But I think that's just for me personally. Again, it's a shame that we couldn't film the panel, not the audience necessarily or the questions at the end, but just the panel, because the conversations were so interesting. It was gold, and it's just such a shame it's gone forever. And the upside of Chatham House rules isn't really that measurable, because no one's going to say anything too controversial. So to me, there doesn't seem to be a downside to filming them if you don't include the audience and the questions. What do you think, guys? Would you film them if?
I think that's great feedback, actually. I think that's something that we would definitely consider next time. I agree now, having seen the content, I don't think it's anything really that couldn't have been made public. But being the first time that we did it, it's a bit of a learning curve as well.
Yeah, absolutely, because you don't know until they've done it. But yeah, there was nothing in there that I wouldn't have been comfortable, recording or anything. Okay, Zenobia. So just touching on then, comparing again to last year. Obviously, I was trying to push the people who couldn't make it to Davos, the H barbarians, the Hedera community. We're trying to get them to push the word. How do we do this year and then again compared to last year?
Sure. So I will share our media recap here, and then we'll also talk about social as well. So this year, what we realized was, we need to have some things that we're bringing to Davos. It's not enough just to be there. There's so much activity happening that we really need to push news. And I think the community did a great job of sort of rallying around. And this is months in development. We worked on what are the kinds of things that we can talk about at Davos from all aspects of the community. So we worked, not only was there an announcement from Hedera about a new council member, Hitachi, but the week before, when Lehman was presenting in St. Moritz at CFC St. Moritz, we announced the DREC Alliance, which was members of the Hedera and Algorand ecosystems. And that really sparked some of the conversations that I think people were able to have at Davos, and where you saw people starting to talk about the crypto community working together and collaborating, and Hedera being a leading voice there. That was then, helped out by the HBAR Foundation announcing the Hedera wallet for MetaMask, which again, tying us into the deeper Web3 community. And then the folks at Equity Lab, in conjunction with our Thursday luncheon, announcing a real world application of, blockchain holding AI accountable to shorten it. There's a lot that goes into that announcement in terms of what it actually, what Hedera, the role Hedera is playing in that. But essentially, as you think about some of these models and you think about the provenance of the data and where it's coming from, HCS is an integral part of making sure that those models are accountable. So between all of those things, as well as the panels, I think Lehman was asked to be on 5 different panels. And we had other Hedera speakers on other panels. We really drove a huge amount of media coverage, much more so than in the previous year, using those lessons learned. And then I think the community, especially, kudos to you, Max, and the rest of the folks who were really amplifying what we were doing out there, drove that social media presence. So again, we have companies there who are much, much bigger than us in terms of number of people, in terms of staff, all those kinds of things. But when some of the third parties did their social media metrics in terms of measuring the number of times that people were talking about, Hedera plus Davos, or Hedera plus, Davos 2024, we were again in that top 5. And, that's, I think, a testament to the power of the community to really say, let's go out and amplify that brand, because we have these really, loyal people in the community who recognize the value of doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to everybody that engages and kind of helps spread the word. So I know there's a measurement, isn't there? And I know that we were number 7 last year in terms of the rankings, exposure or hashtag with the hashtags. Is that right?
So I think, it depended day to day. You sort of had to, they did some of those counts. I think it's, one day we were 7, one day we were 5. But overall, I think the community should be really proud, considering the size and the strength of the brands there, to really be a top 10 social presence at this huge international event.
And we're actually doing some deeper analysis right now on engagement stats last year versus this year. And so hopefully when we have that analysis, we can come back and share that as well.
Yeah, because I was nervous because we didn't have Will.i.am this year. So I was thinking, we're starting on the back foot in terms of just the pure exposure online. But it feels like in my little ecosystem, it feels like we did better this year than we did last. For me, if I had to guess, I do think that we've, in terms of people reached, etc.
Yeah, and then there are metrics that we won't be able to track down, which is where our presence was. We had a selfie wall with the Hedera logo and Davos 2024, and that whole area was, on camera a lot. People were taking selfies. They were putting those out, so who knows what our overall reach actually ended up being.
And what were your thoughts on the wider Hedera ecosystem in terms of the governing council members? Because I was, the only downside I would say compared to last year was that we had the scarf from Atma.io, which was a real game changer for people to viscerally see what can be done, and we didn't have that this year. And I don't know if that would have been the right thing in it to have that kind of showcase in that location, but are you happy with the governing council members and on what they were doing, with Charles? Obviously Charles was there, and then the wider community, what were they up to? Because we were so busy, I didn't really get to see anybody else.
And I do think, we had some of the governing council members, we this year, again, not sort of internally focusing, we sent them off to do a number of things, right? So we had Duncan Moore from Aberdeen spoke at a number of events. Monique Morrow, who's an independent board member, spoke at a number of events. Shushi Rana from ServiceNow spoke and was engaged. So even though it felt like, gosh, we don't have these people sort of in our presence the entire time because there wasn't that same kind of showcase, and them standing at the bar. Sometimes you might have seen them, sometimes you might not have. They were really out there in the community trying to engage in those conversations, present on behalf of Hedera, and we really appreciate that. And I think the quality of some of those conversations, it sounds like, was very impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I was really impressed with how they divided and conquered. I mean, they were the equity lounge or the CNBC lounge or the blockchain lounge. They were all over the place. And then we would convene in the bar and kind of compare notes of what was going on over there. So it was really neat to see Hedera like presence almost everywhere with each one of our governing council members, etc. And then and also I just wanted to note that AI was all over the place, where last year blockchain was all over the place. And I was really pleasantly surprised to see how much Hedera was in the conversation around AI as well. And there was, I would say, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like there was a little bit less of a blockchain presence compared to the last year when we were there on the street front.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Guys.
I think there were a little less, but AI was everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. It really was. Yeah, absolutely. And also how blockchain and AI, what roles they're going to play in terms of proof of different things. Okay, so just very quickly then, last question to you, and again, thank you very much for your time. Are you going to be in? Is Hedera going to be in Davos next year? And if you don't know that yet, when will you know if you're going to have a presence there next year?
Yeah, so we have a marketing committee that really convenes to discuss overall strategy, direction, and then implementation. The early feedback is from the contingent that was there it was valuable. Hedera should be back. Folks liked the presence a lot. What form it takes is tough to know at this stage. There'll be many meetings before that comes into focus. But will Hedera be back in some way at Davos? I think the way the wind's blowing right now, we'd say yes.
Okay, that's good to know. I think, as a H barbarian, I think we should be there from what I've seen. So I think that's a very positive thing, and it would be great to see Mance next year as well as Lee. Yeah. That would be very cool. Okay, guys, is there anything else you want to say before we call it?
I just want to call out Max. Thanks so much for being there and for spending time with us. Your presence there took it to a whole other level. It really did. Not just your personality, but your understanding of our community and what we're looking for and what's and what we're all about. Your energy there was great, and your contribution to it all was awesome. So thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
Really well put, Claudio.
Yeah, it's you know what, it's an honor, and this is something I quickly want to say. People don't see, all they see is the kind of polished end product. They don't see you guys turning up 2 days before and running around like lunatics with stickers and the wrong printed banners and trying to just really going flat out to try and make it look what it was. And people really don't consider the amount of work that goes in to deliver something of the quality that you guys deliver. And there isn't a team or an army of 20 people, sort of faceless, nameless people that come in and do this all. And then Christian just swans in at the last minute, with his monocle in, ready to go.
If only.
Yeah, exactly. So it is literally you guys on your literal hands and knees and ladders, getting the stuff up and doing it yourselves. There is no other team. There is no hidden sort of help behind the scenes. So as a community member, I want to thank you all very much for all of the hard work you put in that many people don't see and they take for granted. They might see, a nice rewarding meal at the end of a very, very hard week, but they don't see the very, very hard week. They just see the smiles and the handshakes in front of the camera. So thank you for all the hard work that you guys do.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max.
All right.
Thanks, Max.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.